Hi, I'm Mike, back again. Today, in this video, we're going to look at the master cuts. In our last video, we talked about the master guards or the master stances. And in our first video, we talked about the charisms. So now, we're going to work on cutting with the weapon. We're going to practice our cuts today from Vom Tag, most of them from Vom Tag, because it's one of the easier ones to learn from. So, we got this Vom Tag position. Now obviously we won't be static when we're sparring, but we're going to start from a static position so that we can practice these moves. The very first move is the Zorn Hau, which is the strike of wrath, also called the peasant's strike. And what we do here is we're just going to come forward on a 45-degree angle with the sword as we step. Right, so it's just like this, on 45, and you're targeting on your opponent this general part of their body, from the tip of their shoulder up to their neck to their head. Right? And you're going to follow through, and if you notice where that follow through ends up, I end up in Nebenhut, which is one of the reasons we learned that in the Squire level. I want you to know that guard. So, Zorn Hau, just like that. Do it again nice and slow. Zorn Hau, like that. Watch that edge alignment, and also you should be passing the sword to the furthest extension it can be from your body, which is called long point. You should be crossing long point with that strike. The next cut we're going to learn is another overhead cut called the Scheitelhau. And the Scheitelhau is done from the high Vom Tag. So you're going to start up here, the high Vom Tag, and you're going to come straight down. That is your Scheitelhau. Okay? Again, high Vom Tag, Scheitelhau. We're going to do it nice and slow this time. Edge alignment, nice and straight. And that's your Scheitelhau. Now the Scheitelhau is a very powerful strike, but is kind of it gets telegraphed. When your hands are over your head, there's not many places you're going to go with that sword other than straight down. So you got to watch how you use it and when you use it. The next is the Scheitelhau. The Scheitelhau is an overhead strike, and it can be used in two different ways: offensively or defensively. We're going to learn today the defensive method of engaging with the Scheitelhau. So the offensive Scheitelhau, you start with your Zorn Hau, and when you get about here, you're going to flip your hands so that your wrist is upside down, and you're going to strike with the false edge of your weapon. Now the reason you do this is, if you remember from our charism video, Master Lichtenauer says when your opponent cuts, you cut. So if your opponent cuts a Zorn Hau, the way to block him is to cut a Zorn Hau, and your swords will meet in the middle. But if you start cutting the Zorn Hau, your opponent sees it, and they cut a Zorn Hau, how do you avoid getting stuck on his sword? Bend your wrist. It lowers the weapon down to a different line of attack. It's not as powerful, but it will miss his sword entirely, and his block will fail. Now, from the Scheitelhau, that's the last of our overhead or Oberhau cuts. The next cut that we'll learn is the Zwerchhau, and its popular modern nickname is the helicopter cut. So from the Vom Tag, you're going to lay your sword back flat so that the blade is parallel to the ground, and you're going to rotate it out to the right to strike sideways at your opponent's head. And then what you're going to do is you step back, you're going to rotate the sword over your head, and you're going to strike at the other side of their head with the other side of the sword. Like that, and like that. And if you see, when you go really fast, it starts to look like a helicopter plane. The Zwerchhau is a very fast cut, rapid movement, but it's not powerful. So you're not going to be able to cut through armor with this type of a cut. But if you're doing what we're doing, this Blasfechten, you have an unarmored opponent, it can be employed very rapidly and get around any of their blocks. The next cut that we're going to work on is the Krumpau. It's probably the most difficult cut for new students to learn. The Krumpau is known as the crooked cut. It's crooked because what you're going to do is strike with the back edge of your blade, the false edge, and after you strike, your hilt will end up higher than your blade as you strike. So, from the Vom Tag, you're going to let that sword fall backwards in your hand, and rotate around the web of your thumb. And as it comes back up, you're going to grab it and you're going to pop it up. So it goes like that. Now we're practicing it kind of close into your body. And we practice it close into the body to get that motion down. Right? That crooked motion with the sword. We're using that second blade. You know, St. Paul talks about the Bible being a two-edged sword. It's because it can be employed in different ways. And you can totally employ the two-edged sword in different ways. You know, from here, your opponent might think you're going to strike the Zornhau or something like that, but you're going to come in up underneath and give them that crooked cut. Now, what you'll do when you're sparring is you're going to combine this with a step we call a traversing step, which is kind of on a forward 45. And you're going to hold the sword a little high, and you're going to come out like that. So you're going to strike like this, which gets up and around the sword and takes you out of your opponent's line of attack at the same time. And we will cover that obviously more in depth when we do each individual cut. The next cut that we're going to learn is it's just called a straight Unterhau. Unlike a false edge cut, just like the crooked cut, it kind of comes from down below. But instead of being with the false edge of the sword, you're just going to let the sword fall come out sideways, or you're going to start from Nebenhut, and you're just going to cut a reverse Zornhau. So your reverse Zornhau is just the true edge of the blade in an upward 45, just like that, so that you can get your opponent from down below. From there, you're targeting knees up to stomach. Those are our cuts that we learned at the Squire level in the Order of Lepanto. If you have any questions, please post them out in our Google group, and somebody will be sure to answer you. We've got lots of folks watching and waiting for questions to help students out all over the country. Deo gratias.